The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Jae-won's boots as he looked up at the dark sky. 3 black shapes moved between the stars like hungry wolves. The Vorthak ships had found them at last. "How long do we have?" asked HFY, running, up beside him. Her engineer's uniform was dirty from working on their defense systems all night. Sweat ran down her face despite the cold air. Jae-won checked his scanner. "Maybe 20 minutes before they land. Are the weapons ready?" "As ready as they can be with what we have." HFY shook her head. "We have 43 people, Jae-won. They probably have thousands. Behind them, the last human settlement on this dead world prepared for war. Children cried in the underground bunkers while their parents checked old rifles and homemade bombs. Everyone knew this was the end. The Vorthak had hunted humans across 17 star systems. Every colony had fallen. Every ship had burned. Now only this small group remained. Taeho ran toward them, his young face pale with fear. At 18, he was the youngest fighter they had. The sensors picked up landing craft. Lots of them. Coming down near the eastern ridge. "Get to your position," Jae-won told him. "Remember what we practiced. Make every shot count." The boy nodded and ran back toward the defensive line. Jae-won watched him go and felt his heart break. Taeho should have been in school, not holding a gun and waiting to die. The first explosions lit up the horizon. Orange fire bloomed against the dark mountains as the Vorthak ships landed. Soon the aliens would come pouring out with their energy weapons and war machines. The humans had hidden in these caves for 2 years, but their luck had finally run out. "Remember the plan," Jae-won spoke into his radio. "Hold them as long as you can. When your position falls, fall back to the next line. We keep them away from the bunkers as long as possible." Voices crackled back through the radio. Scared voices, brave voices, voices of people who knew they were going to die. But nobody ran. Nobody gave up. That was what made humans special, Jae-won thought. Even when everything was lost, they kept fighting. The ground shook as something big moved in the distance. Through his binoculars, Jae-won saw the first Vorthak war machines rolling toward them. The aliens looked like giant spiders, made of metal and hate. Their weapons glowed blue in the darkness. "Here they come," someone whispered over the radio. The battle began with a sound like thunder. Blue energy beams cut through the air where the humans hid. Rock exploded around them as they fired back with their simple weapons. The noise was terrible. Screaming metal, exploding stone, and the cries of the wounded. HFY worked frantically at her control panel. She had rigged explosives throughout the canyon, hoping to slow down the enemy advance. "Got them!" she shouted, as a whole section of cliff came down on a group of Vorthak soldiers. But more kept coming. Always more. On the eastern ridge, Taeho and 5 other defenders held a narrow pass. The young man fired his rifle again and again until the barrel grew hot in his hands. A Vorthak energy beam missed his head by inches, turning the rock behind him into glowing slag. "Taeho!" his friend, Youngsik, called out. "I'm hit!" The boy left his position to help drag Youngsik to safety. A Vorthak soldier appeared at the top of the ridge, its weapon aimed at them both. Taeho threw himself in front of his wounded friend. The energy beam hit him in the chest, and he fell without a sound. "No!" Youngsik screamed, but Taeho was already gone. The youngest of them all had died protecting someone else. The human lines began to collapse. One by one, their positions fell to the overwhelming Vorthak forces. Jae-won watched his people fall back, fighting every step of the way. They made the aliens pay for every meter of ground, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. HFY's voice crackled over the radio. "The eastern bunker is breached. They're inside the tunnels." Jae-won felt cold fear in his stomach. The eastern bunker held 20 civilians, including all the children. "Hold them back," he ordered. "I'm coming." But HFY was already moving. She grabbed her toolkit and ran toward the bunker entrance. The Vorthak soldiers inside were advancing toward the civilian shelter. She could hear the children crying through the walls. "Hey!" she shouted at the aliens. "Over here!" The Vorthak turned their weapons toward her. HFY smiled and pressed the button on her toolkit. The explosives she had been saving for emergencies went off all at once. The tunnel collapsed, crushing the aliens but also burying HFY forever. Her sacrifice saved the children, at least. For a few more minutes, the defensive lines crumbled. One by one, the human fighters fell back to the central compound. Jae-won found himself in the main bunker with 15 survivors. Outside, they could hear the Vorthok moving closer. "Sir," said Min-jun, the radio operator. "We're getting signals from other human groups. Colony ships asking for help. Settlements. Under attack! They're hitting everyone at once." Jae-won's blood turned to ice. "How many?" 17 different locations, all crying for help. Min-jun's voice broke. All going silent one by one. The Vorthak weren't just attacking this world. They were finishing the job, wiping out every last human in the galaxy, making sure none survived to tell the story of their species. The bunker door exploded inward. Vorthak's soldiers poured through the opening like a dark tide. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Their eyes glowed red in their alien faces. Jae-won raised his rifle and fired. Around him, the last free humans in the galaxy made their final stand. They fought with everything they had: guns, knives, their bare hands. But the outcome was certain. One by one, his friends fell. Min-jun died at his radio, still trying to call for help that would never come. Old Dr. Sung fell protecting his medical supplies. Even the children fought when the Vorthak broke into their shelter. Finally, only Jae-won remained. He stood in the wreckage of humanity's last hope, bleeding from a dozen wounds. The Vorthak commander approached him, its weapon aimed at his heart. "Your species dies with you," the alien said in perfect human language. "You were a disease in our galaxy. Now you are cured." Jae-won looked at the creature that had destroyed his entire species. Then he smiled. With his last strength, he reached for the emergency radio. His finger found the transmission button. "This is Jae-won of the Kepler colony," he whispered into the microphone. "The last human settlement is falling. We fought with everything we had, but we're not enough." His voice grew weaker. "If anyone is listening, if any humans survive anywhere, the torch falls to you now." He pressed his bloody hand against the biometric scanner. The radio sent his genetic signature and death confirmation across the galaxy. Then the Vorthak weapon fired, and the last known human died. Above them, the Vorthak ships began to leave. Their work was done. Humanity was extinct. The galaxy was safe from the disease of human ambition and courage. But deep in space, an ancient signal receiver caught Jae-won's final transmission. Computers that had waited in silence for decades suddenly came alive. Far away on a dead world called Earth, something stirred in the deep places where no light had shone for years. The last human had fallen, but the real war was about to begin. Cold. That was the first thing Da-un felt when consciousness returned. Not the cold of winter air, but the deep cold that came from sleeping in ice for many years. Her body felt strange, like it belonged to someone else. Lights flickered on around her as the cryopod opened with a soft hiss. Warm air rushed in, carrying the smell of metal and recycled atmosphere. Da-un tried to sit up, but her muscles wouldn't obey at first. How long had she been asleep? "Welcome back, Commander Da-un," said a voice from speakers hidden in the walls. "You have been in cryogenic sleep for 83 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Da-un's mind snapped fully awake. 83 years? The war with the Vorthak had been going badly when she entered the sleep chambers, but surely it couldn't have lasted this long. "What is the status of human colonies?" she asked, her voice rough from the long sleep. "All confirmed human settlements have been destroyed," the computer replied. "The last verified human died 47 minutes ago on Kepler 442b. The Genesis protocol has been activated." The words hit Da-un like a physical blow. All the colonies, every ship, every person. She gripped the sides of her pod as the full meaning sank in. Humanity was extinct, except for whoever else was sleeping in these hidden chambers. "How many survivors are in this facility?" 2,312 individuals remain in cryogenic storage. You have been selected for immediate awakening based on your psychological profile and military background. Da-un climbed out of the pod on shaking legs. Around her, thousands of other cryo chambers filled a vast underground hall. Each one held a person who didn't know they were the last humans alive. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, doctors, the best and brightest that Earth had produced. "Show me what happened," she commanded. The walls came alive with images and data. For hours, Da-Un watched the systematic destruction of her species. The Vorthak had been thorough. Every world burned, every ship hunted down, every attempt at hiding discovered and destroyed. They had turned genocide into an art form. But as she watched, Da-Un began to understand something else. This underground facility wasn't just a bunker. It was something much more advanced. The technology around her was beyond anything that had existed when she went to sleep. Computer, what is the Genesis Protocol? The Genesis Protocol was humanity's final contingency plan. In the event of species extinction, selected individuals would be awakened and enhanced to serve as humanity's ultimate response. You are no longer entirely human, Commander. Da-Un looked down at her hands. They looked normal, but she could feel something different. Her reflexes were faster. Her mind was clearer. Even her eyesight seemed sharper than before. Enhanced how? Nanoscale machines were introduced during your cryogenic sleep. They have improved your physical capabilities, mental processing, and healing rate. You are now capable of feats that would have been impossible for baseline humans. The chamber doors opened, and Da-Un walked into a corridor that stretched further than she could see. Emergency lighting guided her toward what the computer called the command center. As she walked, she tried to process what she had learned. Humanity was dead, but she and the others had been turned into something more than human. But for what purpose? The command center was enormous, filled with screens and control panels that hummed with quiet energy. At the center stood a man who looked to be in his 30s, though Da-Un knew he had to be much older. "Commander Da-Un," he said, turning to face her. "I'm Min-Ho. I was awakened 2 hours ago. I helped design the enhancement process before we went into the chambers." Da-Un studied his face. She remembered Min-Ho from the old days, a brilliant genetic engineer who had worked on impossible projects. "How many of us are awake?" 12 so far. The computer is waking us up slowly to avoid system shock. But we need to talk about what we've become and why. Min-Ho led her to a viewing screen that showed the surface of Earth. The planet looked green and healthy, not like the dead world the Vorthak thought they had sterilized. They bombed the surface cities, but they never found these deep facilities. We've been down here for over 80 years while the planet healed itself. And during that time, automated systems have been building ships, weapons, technology that pushes the boundaries of physics itself. Everything we need to do what we were designed for. Da-Un felt a chill that had nothing to do with the recycled air. "Which is?" Another voice answered from behind them. "Judgment." They turned to see a woman approaching. She was tall and moved with the fluid grace that Da-Un was beginning to recognize in the enhanced humans. Her name tag read, Bo-Ram. "I was a physicist before the sleep," Bo-Ram continued. "I worked on theoretical weapons that I never thought could be built. But they've been built. All of them. Things that can fold space and time. Weapons that exist in multiple dimensions at once." Min-Ho nodded grimly. "The Vorthak think they won. They think they cleaned the galaxy of the human disease, but they just triggered the immune response." Da-Un walked to another screen and called, "Up star charts." The Vorthak Empire sprawled across dozens of systems, fat and happy with their victory. They had no idea what was coming. "How many more facilities like this one exist?" 17, Bo-Ram replied. "One under every major landmass on Earth. Each one specialized for different purposes. This one handles command and control. Others manufacture ships and weapons. Some focus on biological research. One entire facility is dedicated to psychological warfare." The screens around them showed the awakening process happening in other chambers. Thousands of enhanced humans were returning to consciousness, each one learning what had happened to their species. Da-Un could see the same emotions on their faces that she had felt: grief, rage, and a cold determination. "What's our timeline?" Da-Un asked. Min-Ho checked his displays. "The computer estimates 6 months before we're fully operational. The awakening process can't be rushed, and people need time to adapt to their enhancements. Plus, we need to test the new technology and plan our operations." 6 months, Da-Un repeated. In 6 months, they would begin humanity's revenge. But as she looked at the data flowing across the screens, she wondered if revenge was the right word. This felt more like an extermination. A new voice spoke from the speakers. Additional personnel are awakening in Command Chamber 2. Dr. Hyun Woo, Naval Architect. Dr. So Young, Tactical Specialist. Dr. Chang Min, Psychological Operations. Da-un realized that each person being awakened had been chosen for specific skills. This wasn't random. The computer was assembling a team capable of waging war on an unimaginable scale. "Computer," she called out, "what are our objectives?" Primary objective: eliminate the Vorthak Empire and all associated species. Secondary objective: establish human dominance over the galaxy. Tertiary objective: ensure no species ever again attempts genocide against humanity. The coldness of the computer's words sent a shiver through Da-un. This wasn't just about defeating the Vorthak. This was about making sure nothing like this could ever happen again. Boram seemed to read her thoughts. "The enhancements don't just make us faster and stronger, Da-un. They make us more capable of doing what needs to be done. The guilt, the hesitation, the mercy that might stop us. The nanites help us push through all of that." Da-un looked around at the awakening humans and felt something she hadn't expected. Not sadness for what they had lost, but excitement for what they were about to become. The enhanced humans weren't just Earth's last children. They were its judgment made flesh. "When do we start planning?" she asked. "Now," Minho replied. "The galaxy killed our species thinking we were weak. Time to show them what humans become, when they have nothing left to lose." Around them, more screens came online as other facilities reported their status. Ships under construction, weapons being tested, enhanced humans learning to use abilities that defied natural law. Earth was waking up, and it was very, very angry. The last human had fallen, but humanity's real warriors were just getting started. 3 months had passed since the awakening, and Hyunwoo still couldn't believe what he was seeing. The ship construction bays stretched for kilometers under the Pacific Ocean, filled with vessels that shouldn't exist. The hulls seemed to shimmer and fade as if they weren't entirely real. "The phase drives are working perfectly," he told Da-un as they walked through the massive facility. "These ships don't travel through space the normal way. They step sideways into another dimension and come back wherever we want them to." Da-un nodded, though the science still made her head hurt. "How fast can they move?" "Instantly. 1 second. They're here. The next, they're on the other side of the galaxy. The Vorthak won't even see us coming." Above them, robotic arms assembled another ship from materials that glowed with inner light. The manufacturing systems had been running automatically for decades, building a fleet that would have been impossible with normal human technology. But these weren't normal humans anymore. So Young approached them, carrying a datapad full of tactical information. She had been working with the other facility commanders to coordinate their planning. "We have a problem," she announced. "What kind of problem?" Da-un asked. "A moral one. Changmin's Psychological Warfare Division has developed weapons that don't just kill the Vorthak. They make them suffer in ways that—" So Young paused, looking for the right words. "They're designed to inflict maximum psychological trauma before death." Da-un felt the nanites in her system respond to her emotions, dampening the sympathy she might have felt for their enemies. "Show me." They traveled through the underground transport system to another facility, this one buried beneath what used to be Seoul. Chang Min met them at the entrance, his enhanced eyes bright with scientific enthusiasm. "You have to see this," he said, leading them into a laboratory filled with strange devices. "We've learned everything about Vorthak psychology from their own communications. Their fears, their pain responses, their deepest cultural taboos." He activated a holographic display showing a Vorthak soldier. "This species believes that dying in fear damns them to eternal suffering. So we've created weapons that force them to experience pure terror before they die. Not just fear, absolute mind-breaking horror." So Young looked sick. "Changmin, that's torture." "That's justice," Changmin replied without emotion. "They showed no mercy to human children. They made our people suffer before they died. Now, they get to experience the same thing." Da-un studied the weapon designs. Part of her, the part that was still fully human, was horrified. But the enhanced part of her mind was already calculating how effective these weapons would be at breaking enemy morale. "What else have you developed?" Changmin smiled, and the expression was cold as winter. Memory extractors that force them to experience every death they've caused from the victim's perspective. Neural scramblers that make them forget who they are but remember that they're supposed to be terrified. And my personal favorite, empathy bombs. Empathy bombs? They force the target to feel genuine emotion for the first time in their lives. Imagine a creature that has never felt guilt suddenly experiencing the full weight of every life they've taken. Most of them go insane within minutes. So Young backed away from the displays. We can't use these things. We're supposed to be better than them. Are we? Changmin asked. Look around you, So Young. Look at what we've become. The nanites in our bodies are suppressing our human compassion, making us capable of doing what needs to be done. We're not the good guys anymore. We're the necessary ones. Da-Un felt the truth of his words in her enhanced nervous system. The modifications weren't just physical. They were changing who they were as people, making them capable of terrible things in the name of justice. There's something else you need to see, Hyunwoo said quietly. He led them to another part of the facility, where Yoonji was working on communication systems. Yoonji had been a diplomat. Before the sleep, someone who believed in peaceful solutions. Now she looked up from her work with eyes that held no warmth. I've been monitoring galactic communications since we woke up. The other species know what happened to humanity. They all know. And, Da-Un prompted, they're celebrating. The Torelli. Senate passed a resolution thanking the Vorthak for removing the human threat. The Zalani corporations are already bidding on the rights to mine our former colonies. The Krotek Empire sent congratulations on a job well done. So Young sat down heavily in a nearby chair. All of them? Every single species in the galactic community. They either helped with the genocide or cheered when it was finished. Not. One voice was raised in protest. Not one government offered refuge to human civilians. Da-Un felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. The nanites responded to her anger, amplifying it while suppressing any tendency toward forgiveness. Show me the records. For the next hour, they watched intercepted communications from across the galaxy. Government officials discussing how to divide up human territory. Corporations celebrating the end of human competition. Even individual citizens of various species expressing relief that the aggressive humans were finally gone. They made their choice, Da-Un said finally. All of them. They chose to be complicit in genocide. Changmin nodded. Which is why my division has expanded its mission. We're not just targeting the Vorthak anymore. Every species that celebrated our extinction, every government that stood by and watched, every individual who cheered for genocide, they all get to experience the consequences of their choices. Yoonji pulled up another set of files. I've been working on something different. A way to offer them one chance at redemption. We broadcast the truth about what really happened. The children who were murdered, the colonies that burned, the systematic torture of prisoners. We show them exactly what they supported. And if they still don't care? So Young asked. Then they join the Vorthak in extinction, Yoonji replied. Her diplomatic training made her words sound reasonable, but her enhanced mind had already calculated the probabilities. Most species would choose to justify their past actions rather than admit guilt. They moved through more sections of the facility, seeing weapons that bent reality itself. Soldiers training with abilities that let them move faster than thought. Ships that could destroy entire planets with a single shot. The scope of what had been built during their sleep was staggering. Bo-Ram met them in the physics laboratory, where she was testing something that hurt to look at directly. Dimensional bombs, she explained. They don't just destroy matter. They erase it from existence completely. No atoms left behind, no energy signature, nothing. The target simply stops being. How many can we build? Da-Un asked. As many as we need. The manufacturing systems can produce them faster than we can deploy them. Dae-Yun realized that they weren't just planning a war. They were preparing to rewrite the rules of existence itself. The enhanced humans had the power to reshape the galaxy according to their will. What about after? So Young asked. After we've killed everyone who wronged us, what then? Changmin answered without looking up from his work. Then we make sure it never happens again? Any species that shows signs of aggression gets corrected. Any government that oppresses its people gets replaced. Any individual who promotes genocide gets eliminated. We become the galaxy's immune system, Bo-Ram added. a permanent solution to the problem of evil. Da-Yun looked around at her enhanced colleagues and felt a moment of clarity. They weren't planning to save the galaxy. They were planning to conquer it, to rule it with absolute authority, ensuring that nothing like the human genocide could ever happen again. The strange thing was she felt completely comfortable with that idea. The nanites in her system made the moral implications seem unimportant compared to the practical benefits. A galaxy ruled by enhanced humans would be peaceful, efficient, and safe. "How long until we're ready to begin operations?" she asked. Hyun-woo checked his construction schedules. 2 more months for the first wave ships, but we'll need at least a year to build everything we've designed. No, Da-Yun decided. We start in 2 months with what we have. The galaxy has been celebrating our death for too long. Time to show them they were premature. Around her, the enhanced humans smiled with expressions that had nothing human left in them. The last children of Earth were about to become something new. Something terrible and necessary and final. The forge had been lit, and from it would emerge the weapons of humanity's judgment. The first human ship to leave Earth in 80 years materialized in the darkness between stars like a ghost made real. The retribution existed in 3 dimensions at once, its hull shimmering with energy that bent light around it. On the bridge, Dong-hyun watched the stars and felt nothing but cold purpose. "Target confirmed," reported Yoo-jin from her sensor station. "Vorthak Supply Depot Centauri 7, minimal defenses, approximately 200 personnel." "Perfect," Dong-hyun replied. "A small test before the real work begins." The ship stepped sideways through reality and emerged in the Centauri system. The Vorthak depot hung in space like a metal spider, completely unaware that death had just arrived in their system. "They're hailing us," Yoo-jin announced. "Standard identification request." "Ignore it. Begin the attack." The Retribution's weapons were not like anything the galaxy had ever seen. They reached through space and time to touch their targets directly. The depot's shields meant nothing. Its armor was irrelevant. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding cloud of superheated gas. But Dong-hyun wasn't satisfied with simple destruction. Following the plan, he activated the second phase. Weapons. Changmin's psychological warfare devices reached out to touch the minds of the dying Vorthak, filling their last moments with pure terror and the faces of every human child they had helped murder. "No survivors," Yoo-jin confirmed. "The entire facility is gone." "Good. Download everything from their computers, then we move to the next target." The Retribution vanished again, leaving no trace except an empty patch of space where the depot had been. Within hours, 3 more Vorthak facilities simply ceased to exist. No warnings, no demands, no explanations. Just sudden, terrifying death. From nowhere. On Vorthak Prime, military commanders stared at reports that made no sense. "Impossible," growled General Thakmore, studying the tactical displays. "Our facilities are just gone. No debris, no energy signatures, no evidence of attack." "Sir," his aide reported nervously, "we're receiving similar reports from 14 other systems. Supply depots, patrol bases, communication stations, all destroyed in the same way." "Pirates? Rebels?" "No, sir. The attacks are too coordinated, too advanced. This is something new." Something new indeed. In the depths of space, more human ships were emerging from Earth's hidden launch bays. Each one carried enhanced humans who had spent months learning to use abilities that challenged the laws of physics. Woo-jin led the assault team aboard the Vengeance as it materialized inside a Vorthak military complex on Kepler 438c. The aliens barely had time to sound alarms before the humans were among them. Woo-jin moved through the corridors like liquid death. His enhanced nervous system let him see the future. Not literally, but close enough. He could predict where the Vorthak would aim, where they would move, what they would try to do. Their energy weapons fired at empty air while his bullets found their targets with mechanical precision. "Contact Alpha Base," one Vorthak soldier screamed into his communicator. "We're under attack by... He never finished the sentence. Woo-jin appeared behind him, moving faster than thought, and the alien died without understanding what had killed him. The entire complex fell in 17 minutes. Not one human was injured. When it was over, Woo-jin activated the memory extraction. Devices, pulling every piece of tactical information from the Vorthak computers, ship movements, defense plans, communication codes, everything they needed for the next phase. Data secured, he reported to the fleet. Moving to secondary objectives. Back on Earth, Dawon watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. 27 Vorthak installations destroyed in the first day with 0 human losses. The enhanced soldiers were performing exactly as designed. The Vorthak are starting to panic, Yujin reported from her intelligence station. Their communications are full of references to ghost attacks and impossible weapons. They're pulling ships back from the frontier to defend their core systems. Let them, Dawon replied. Fear is just the beginning. The attacks continued for weeks. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with overwhelming force, and vanished before any response could be organized. The Vorthak Empire began to fracture, as commanders lost faith in their ability to protect their own territory. But the humans weren't just attacking randomly. Junho, the former war correspondent, was carefully documenting every strike. His enhanced memory could store perfect recordings of everything he witnessed, and he made sure to capture the full scope of Vorthak's suffering. This one's for the children of New Geneva, he whispered as he recorded a Vorthak ship burning in space. This one's for the families on Tau Ceti. This one's for everyone who died screaming while the galaxy watched and did nothing. The psychological weapons were having their intended effect. Vorthak soldiers began refusing orders, too terrified to leave their bases. Some went insane from the empathy bombs, suddenly able to feel the pain they had caused and unable to bear it. Others simply shut down mentally, their minds protecting them by forgetting who they were. Sir, a Vorthak intelligence officer reported to his supreme commander, we've detected a pattern in the attacks. They're not random. Someone is systematically dismantling our entire military infrastructure. Supreme Commander Vexitar studied the data with growing horror. How many ships do they have? We don't know, sir. They appear and disappear without using any known technology. Our sensors can't track them. Our weapons can't hit them. And, sir, there's something else. What? The attacks are spreading. Beyond our empire. The Torelli Senate building was destroyed yesterday. 3 Zelani corporate headquarters have been vaporized. The Krotek Military Academy was turned into a crater. Someone is attacking everyone who supported our campaign against the humans. Vextar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine fear. The humans are dead. We made sure of it. That's what we thought, sir. But what if we were wrong? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. What if they were wrong? What if humanity had somehow survived and was now coming for revenge? In space around Vorthak Prime, invisible ships took position. The enhanced humans aboard them felt no mercy, no hesitation, no doubt. The nanites in their systems had burned away such weaknesses, leaving only purpose and the cold satisfaction of justice served. Phase 2 begins tomorrow, Da'un announced to the fleet. Direct assault on their homeworlds. No more hiding, no more mystery. Time to show the galaxy exactly who they're dealing with. Dong Hyun received the order aboard the Retribution and smiled with his enhanced mouth. Finally, I was getting tired of these small targets. Around him, the ship's weapons charged with energy that existed partially outside normal space-time. The Vorthak had started this war when they chose genocide. Now the enhanced humans would finish it. The storm had been building for months in the darkness between stars. Tomorrow, it would break over the Vorthak Empire like the wrath of a dead species made manifest. In their final communications before the assault, the enhanced humans spoke words that would become legend. You wanted us extinct. You should have made sure. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you killed every human, but the ones specifically designed to be unkillable. The last human had fallen on a distant world 6 months ago, but humanity's real warriors were just getting started. The storm was about to break, and nothing would ever be the same again. The 3 Vorthak homeworlds had never seen ships like the ones that appeared in their skies. The human fleet materialized simultaneously above Vorthak Prime, Thaknol, and Zexhai, their hulls rippling with dimensional energy that made reality bend around them. Sung-Ho stood on the bridge of the final judgment as it hung above Vorthak Prime like a metal moon. Below him, billions of aliens looked up in terror at ships they couldn't understand, wielding weapons that shouldn't exist. All ships report ready, came the voices of the other fleet commanders through the quantum communicators. Dimensional bombs armed. Psychological warfare systems online. Recording devices active. Remember, Sung-Ho broadcast to the fleet, we want them to understand what's happening before they die. No quick deaths, no mercy. They need to experience exactly what they put our species through. On Vorthak Prime's surface, emergency broadcasts filled the airwaves. Military leaders, who had celebrated humanity's extinction, now screamed for help that wouldn't come. Their own allies had been suffering mysterious attacks for weeks and had no ships to spare. Unknown vessels, came a transmission from the planet. Below, this is Supreme Commander Vextar of the Vorthak Defense Force. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. Seung-Ho smiled as he opened the communication channel. For the first time in months, the enhanced humans were going to announce themselves. Greetings, Supreme Commander, he replied, his voice carrying across every communication frequency on the planet. My name is Seung-Ho, and I speak for the last children of Earth. You killed our species, so we've come to return the favor. Silence filled the channel for long moments. Then Vexitar's voice returned, shaking with disbelief. Impossible. The humans are extinct. We made certain of it. You made certain that the civilian population died, Seung-Ho corrected. But while you were busy murdering farmers and children, Earth's real warriors were sleeping in the deep places, waiting for exactly this moment. Across the 3 homeworlds, the enhanced humans began their final demonstration. But first, In-Young activated her most terrible creation, the empathy viruses. Invisible and unstoppable, the engineered organisms spread through the Vorthak population in minutes. The aliens had evolved without the capacity for genuine empathy, seeing other beings as resources to be used or obstacles to be removed. But In-Young's viruses changed that. For the first time in their evolutionary history, the Vorthak began to feel the pain of others. Every act of cruelty they had committed suddenly carried the full emotional weight of their victims' suffering. The proud warriors who had laughed while burning human colonies now collapsed as waves of guilt and horror crashed over them. On Vorthak Prime, Supreme Commander Vextar stumbled from his command center as his mind was suddenly flooded with the memories of every human child who had died screaming on his orders. He felt their terror, their pain, their desperate calls for parents who would never come. What? What have you done to us? He gasped into his communicator. We've given you the gift of true emotion, In-Young replied from her ship above. For the first time in your miserable existence, you can feel what your victims felt. Enjoy the experience. Across the planet, Vorthak society began to collapse. Soldiers threw down their weapons as they suddenly understood the horror of what they had done. Civilians wept for species they had never thought of as truly alive. Leaders who had ordered genocide now experienced the full weight of their crimes, but the enhanced humans weren't finished. Da-Un's voice cut through the chaos as she broadcast on every frequency in the galaxy. People of the galaxy, she began, her words reaching hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. You believed humanity was extinct. You celebrated our destruction. You divided our territories among yourselves and praised our killers. Today, you learn the price of complicity in genocide. The broadcast continued with footage that Junho had been collecting for months. Images of human colonies burning while galactic news networks called it necessary pest control. Recordings of alien leaders toasting humanity's extinction. Communications between governments discussing how to profit from human deaths. Every species in the galactic community knew what was happening, Dawon continued. Every government had the power to offer shelter to human refugees. Every individual had the choice to speak out against genocide. You all chose silence. You all chose complicity. Now you face the consequences. The dimensional bombs began to fall. Unlike normal weapons, these erased their targets from existence itself. Vorthak cities didn't explode. They simply stopped being. Millions of aliens vanished in instants, their atoms scattered across dimensional barriers where they could never be recovered. Kite led the ground forces as they descended to the remaining population centers, but these weren't conquest operations. They were liberation missions. In the deepest bunkers of each Vorthak world, the enhanced humans found what they had come for. Dear God, whispered Hyojin as she explored a facility on Thaknol. They kept some of them alive. The concentration camps were worse than anything the humans had imagined. Survivors from a dozen species that the Vorthak had pacified over the centuries, kept alive for experimentation and entertainment. Beings so broken by torture that they barely remembered their own names. Kite moved through the camps with mechanical precision, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to neutralize guards while barely seeming to move. The Vorthak's soldiers, already broken by the empathy virus, offered no resistance as their victims were finally freed. "This is Kite to all ships," he reported. "We have survivors, thousands of them, members of species we thought were extinct." The liberated beings looked at their human rescuers with a mixture of awe and terror. The enhanced humans moved like forces of nature, their abilities so far beyond normal biology that they seemed like gods of war made flesh. "You're safe now," Kite told a group of trembling Altarian children, the last survivors of a species the galaxy had written off as extinct. "The Vorthak will never hurt anyone again." But even as they rescued the survivors, the enhanced humans continued their systematic destruction of Vorthak civilization. Their weapons were surgical in their precision. Every government building vaporized, every military installation erased, every symbol of Vorthak power removed from existence. The empathy virus continued to spread, but its effects were becoming more severe. Vorthak minds, unprepared for genuine emotion, began to break under the weight of their crimes. Millions went insane from guilt. Others simply shut down, their consciousness unable to process the horror of what they had done. "Please," Supreme Commander Vextar begged in a final transmission, his voice broken by sobs he had never experienced before. "We didn't understand. We thought you were just animals. We didn't know you could suffer like we're suffering now." Seung-ho's response was delivered without emotion. "Every human who died on your orders said the same thing. You didn't care then. We don't care now." The dimensional bombs continued to fall until only a few million Vorthak remained scattered across their 3 homeworlds. But these survivors weren't spared out of mercy. They were left alive to serve as a warning to the galaxy. "Attention all species," Dayun broadcast as the human fleet prepared to move to their next targets. "This is what happens to those who commit genocide. The Vorthak Empire is finished. Their military is destroyed. Their government is erased. Their people are broken." She paused, letting the silence stretch across the communication channels. But they were not alone in their crimes. Every government that celebrated our extinction will face the same fate. Every species that cheered for genocide will learn what it feels like to be on the receiving end. Every individual who supported the murder of innocents will experience the full weight of justice. The enhanced humans had revealed themselves at last, and the galaxy recoiled in terror. These weren't the humans they remembered, peaceful explorers seeking new worlds and friendship with alien species. These were something new, something terrible, something unstoppable. "We are the last children of Earth," Dayun concluded, "and we have come to judge you all." The human fleet vanished from Vorthak space, leaving behind broken worlds and the certain knowledge that humanity's war of judgment had only just begun. The galaxy had wanted the humans extinct, but they had succeeded only in creating something far worse than anything they had feared. The reckoning had been revealed, and there was nowhere left to hide. The war was over in 18 months. 18 months to judge an entire galaxy and find it wanting. 18 months to break every government that had celebrated genocide and scatter every fleet that had stood by while innocents died. Myung-soo stood in what had once been the Galactic Senate building, watching construction robots repair the damage from the dimensional bombs. The Great Hall that had once echoed with speeches justifying humanity's extinction now prepared to host a very different kind of gathering. "The last holdout government surrendered this morning," reported Sun Woo, approaching with a data pad full of reconstruction schedules. "The Krotek Empire formally dissolved itself rather than face judgment. Their military is requesting permission to serve under human command." Myung-soo nodded without surprise. After watching 17 species suffer the same fate as the Vorthak, the remaining governments had lost their appetite for resistance. The enhanced humans had proven that their power was absolute and their judgment final. "What's the status of the refugee camps?" "Better than expected. Hyojin's medical teams have been working miracles with the survivors from the Vorthak concentration camps. We've identified members of 43 species that were thought extinct, plus millions of political prisoners from across the galaxy. Through the huge windows, Myung-soo could see the ships of the new galactic fleet. Human vessels hung in space alongside alien craft whose crews had volunteered to serve under enhanced human command. The old order was dead, and something unprecedented was taking its place. "Sir?" came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. Dayun wants to speak with you." The holographic projector activated, showing the face of humanity's supreme commander. Even after all these months, Myung-soo found it unsettling to look at her. The enhancements had made her beautiful in an inhuman way, her eyes holding depths of knowledge and power that seemed bottomless. "How are the negotiations proceeding?" Dayun asked. "As expected. Terror is an excellent motivator for cooperation. The surviving governments are falling over themselves to sign the Covenant of Stars. The Covenant was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a new form of government that would ensure nothing like the human genocide could ever happen again. Every species would be represented, every voice would be heard, and every being would be protected. But the enhanced humans would serve as guardians, ensuring that the powerful never again oppress the weak. Any resistance? None worth mentioning. The few species that tried to form an alliance against us learned quickly that there's no defense against our weapons. The dimensional bombs make resistance pointless." Dayun smiled with an expression that held no warmth. "Good. What about the enhancement program?" That was the most controversial part of the new order. The enhanced humans were sharing their technology, but carefully. Each species would be allowed to volunteer individuals for the enhancement process, creating guardians who could protect their people from oppression, but the process was irreversible and changed people in fundamental ways. "We have volunteers from every species," Myung-soo reported. "The selection process is rigorous, but Dr. Min-ho says the early results are promising. The enhanced individuals retain their species characteristics while gaining human-level capabilities. And the psychological modifications? Those are more complex. The nanites that suppress inappropriate emotions work differently in alien biology. Some species adapt well, others require significant adjustments." Dayun nodded. "Keep monitoring. We need guardians who can make hard decisions without being paralyzed by sentimentality," Myung-soo understood. The enhanced humans had learned to suppress mercy when it conflicted with justice, compassion when it enabled cruelty, and forgiveness when it allowed evil to continue. These qualities were necessary in guardians who might need to destroy entire governments to protect innocent lives. "There's something else," he said. "The reconstruction of human colonies has begun. HFY's teams have identified over 300 worlds suitable for settlement. We'll need to decide how to populate them." "Mixed colonies," Dayun replied immediately. "Humans and aliens together. We're not trying to recreate the old galaxy with new rulers. We're building something entirely different." The communication ended, leaving Myung-soo alone with his thoughts. Through the windows, he could see transport ships arriving with refugees from across the galaxy. Beings who had lived in fear under oppressive governments now traveled freely to worlds where they could build new lives. Hyojin approached with a group of alien children who were part of her integration program. The young beings looked up at him with expressions of awe and gratitude that made something twist in his enhanced chest. "Mr. Myung-soo," said a small Altarian girl, "is it true that the bad people can never hurt us again?" He knelt down to her level, letting his enhanced features soften into something approaching human kindness. "That's right, little one. The Guardians will always protect you." She smiled and ran back to her friends, completely trusting in the protection of beings she saw as heroes. Myung-soo wondered if she would feel the same way when she grew up, and understood the full cost of that protection. Later, that day he traveled to New Kepler, one of the first mixed colonies established under the new order. The world was beautiful. Green forests, clean oceans, and cities that blended architecture from dozens of species. But more importantly, it was peaceful. HFY met him at the landing pad, her enhanced features showing the satisfaction of work. "Well done. You have to see this," she said, leading him to a school where human and alien children learned together. In the playground, he watched scenes that would have been impossible under the old galactic order. Vorthak children, the orphaned survivors of their species' judgment, played alongside the alien children their parents had once enslaved. Krotek youth shared games with beings their government had planned to conquer. The children adapt quickly, Jihai explained. They don't carry the hatred and prejudices of their elders. This generation will grow up thinking cooperation is normal. Myung-soo nodded, but his enhanced mind was already calculating potential problems. What about when they reach adolescence? When they start questioning authority? That's why we have the Guardian program. Enhanced individuals from every species, watching and guiding. If someone starts developing dangerous ideas about racial superiority or violent solutions, they'll be counseled. The word carried implications that Myung-soo understood perfectly. The new order wasn't maintained through laws or police, but through enhanced guardians who could read minds and predict behavior. Dangerous thoughts were corrected before they could become dangerous actions. Sometimes I wonder if we've created utopia or a prison, he mused. Jihai's response was immediate and certain. Does it matter? The galaxy is peaceful. No one lives in fear. No species faces extinction. Children grow up expecting to live long, happy lives. If that's a prison, it's the best prison anyone has ever built. That evening, Myung-soo stood on the observation deck of his ship as it traveled back to the new galactic capital. Around him, space was full of traffic, trade ships, passenger vessels, and construction craft building new stations and colonies. The galaxy was busier and more prosperous than it had ever been. But threading through the peaceful traffic were other ships, sleek, predatory vessels crewed by enhanced humans. The Guardians were always watching, always ready to intervene if anyone threatened the peace. They were invisible until needed, but their presence was always felt. A message arrived from Da-un, transmitted from Earth where she was overseeing the final phases of human enhancement. Status report? The new order is stable, Myung-soo replied. Trade is expanding, conflicts are minimal, and the Guardian program is preventing problems before they develop. We're seeing unprecedented cooperation between species. Any signs of resistance movements? A few. Mostly former military officers who can't accept the new reality. But the enhanced operatives deal with them quickly and quietly. Da-un's image nodded with satisfaction. Good. What about long-term projections? Myung-soo had been thinking about this question for months. Within a generation, maybe two, the current system will be the only one anyone remembers. The children growing up now will see enhanced guardians as natural protectors rather than conquerors. Opposition will become literally unthinkable. And if someone does try to challenge us, they won't succeed. Our technology is advancing faster than anyone can match. Our guardians grow more capable every year. And most importantly, we control the enhancement process. No one can become powerful enough to threaten us without our permission. The conversation ended, leaving Myung-soo alone with the view of the peaceful galaxy. He thought about Jae-won and the others who had died on that distant world, believing their species was extinct. They had been wrong. Humanity wasn't extinct. It had evolved into something that could never be destroyed. The enhanced humans had become the galaxy's immune system, protecting it from the diseases of hatred, oppression, and genocide. They were no longer entirely human, but they carried humanity's best qualities forward while leaving behind its weaknesses. As his ship approached the capital world, Myung-soo saw the monument that had been built to honor the fallen. At its center stood a statue of Jae-won, the last human to die before the awakening.